Hello and welcome back. So in this video, we are going to set up our systems in order to do some scientific computing with Python. So without wasting much time, let's get started. So the assumption is that you are on a Linux system or a Linux supported system. So either Ubuntu, Linux Mint, or maybe Windows subsystem for Linux. If so, then by default, you should have Python installed on your machine. So to check whether Python is installed, you just type which Python 3 in your terminal, and then you should see this. Once you see this, it means that you have Python already installed on your machine. But then the best practice is that you install several virtual environments to manage your Python work space, right? So depending on the work you are doing in Python, you would want to have different virtual environments that would contain certain packages related to such work. So we are just going to follow the same pattern. We are going to create a virtual environment that would be specifically related to our scientific computing activities. So in order to install a virtual environment in Python, first we would have to install the virtual env, that's do sudo apt install python 3. So you can choose any version of Python you want. I'm interested in the Python 3.11. So Python 3.11 dash vnv. Simple. So you do sudo apt install Python 3.11 venv. That's for virtual environment. Then you hit enter. Make sure you are connected to the internet. When you are connected, you should see this and you click yes. And then this should install for you. Depending on your internet connectivity and how fast it is, it should take no time. I'm going to pause the video here and then play back after it's done installing. Okay, so mine is done installing. If for any reason you try the sudo apt install python 3.11 venv and it doesn't work, then you can try changing the Python version to probably 3.8 or to one that is currently on your machine. So to check the Python version on your machine, you do Python 3, then dash version, or you should do Python 3 dash capital V, and that should also work, right? Sorry, one dash capital V, and then that should also work. But then if for any reason you also want to install the same Python virtual environment that I have, then you should do sudo add dash apt repository. So sudo add dash apt dash repository ppa : dead snakes / ppa. Then you should when you hit enter, you'll be asked to insert your password, and then it will include this repository for you. These repositories contain latest version of Python, and then from there you can now run the command above to install the virtual environment. Bear in mind, if for any reason you can't install the 3.11 venv, you can change it to 3.9 venv. It should work, or 3.10 venv. It should work. Okay, so that's us, by the way. So now I'm assuming that you already have the venv installed. So let's first create a a directory where we can put all our Python stuff there. So make dir, that's make directory, and then so let me just put Python. Okay. Then so I'll cd into my Python directory. And then while I'm in the Python directory, I will now create a virtual environment here. So to create a virtual environment is quite easy. All you have to do is call Python 3.11, the venv that you have. So you can do .11 and then make virtual venv, and then you have what? The name of the virtual environment. So I want to call it SciPy, Scientific Computing Python. So I want to know, not SciPy, let's say Scientific Computing Python or anything. So let me see. SciComm, something like this. So mostly you would want to make it hidden, right? Oh, what's name? Scientific env. You would want to make it hidden so you can add a dot in front of it, and then this will make it a hidden directory. Hopefully this should finish creating. Now it's done creating the sci env for us. That's the scientific computing env. If I do ls, I shouldn't see it, but if I should do ls-a, I should see this. Okay. So now we are done creating the virtual environment. Bear in mind that I was able to use this because this was the virtual env I installed. So if you install the 3.10 virtual env, then you should also do that. Or if you install the 3.9 virtual env, you should also use the Python 3.9 make vnv, then the name of the environment you want. Okay. So now that we are done creating the virtual environment, we would want to activate the virtual environment. So to activate it, we do pin activate. Okay, so now this should work. When you hit enter, you should see this here, right? So once you are seeing this SciPy, the name of the virtual environment we created here, it means that we have our virtual environment activated. So here, if I do which Python, I'm expected to see the Python inside my virtual environment, right? So basically that's that. Okay. So now, and I do Python dash version or dash capital V, I should see 3.11 here. Meanwhile, the Python on my system is Python 3.8. So basically that's that. So the use of virtual environment can help us have different versions of Python on our machine. Okay, so now that we have the virtual environment set up, we would want to install some tools that we would need. One of the first, or one of them is NumPy. So I would want to install NumPy. All I have to do is first do sudo apt install Python 3.11 or Python 3 pip, or you can do sudo apt install pip, right? Pip, and then this would look for pip and install it. If you already have pip, it will tell you that pip has already been installed, because we would want to use the pip to install the stuff. But then we can do Python 3 make pip, right, to install NumPy. So for numerical Python, so we would use this package or library to do our numerical Python computation. And then we also need matplotlib for plotting graphs, right? And they would also need IPython, interactive Python. So I would do IPython. So we would also use this one too for interactive Python. And then what else? Maybe we need SciPy and the others, but then for now, this should work for now. So let's hit enter and then wait patiently for them to install. So I'll pause the video here and then continue once it's done installing. So be patient and make sure you have internet connectivity and then you have enough bandwidth on your connection. I'll see you after it's done installing. Okay, so it's done installing, and then now we get this. A new release of pip is available, so we should run this. So I'm going to copy this and then paste it here, and just to update the pip. Okay, now it's done. Now, for those of us who would like to use the Jupyter or Jupyter environment, you can just do pip install Jupyter or Jupyter, or however you call it. Then this would get the Jupyter and then install the Jupyter notebooks for us so that we can actually use the IPython in the browser using this virtual environment. Bear in mind that every package we are installing here is inside this specific virtual environment. Once this virtual environment is deactivated, we can't make use of any of these packages. Always keep that in mind because it is very important. Sometimes you tend to forget that you are working in a virtual environment and then you try running certain codes that you created while in a virtual environment outside that virtual environment. It may not work. So always keep that in mind when dealing with these things. Okay. So we are going to wait a little while for this to finish. I guess it's almost finishing, but then I'll pause the video and then come back when it's done. Okay, so Jupyter is done installing. Let me clear the screen. So now, if you want to check whether all the packages or the packages installed in your current virtual environment, you do pip freeze. And then pip freeze command should show you all the packages or libraries that you've installed in your current virtual environment. If I should get out of the virtual environment right now, I'm currently out of the virtual environment. And if I should do pip freeze, you see that the things here are different from the things here. We don't have any Jupyter here. We don't have any of the stuff that we have here on or outside the virtual environment. So keep that in mind. Always try your best to activate a virtual environment whenever you want to work. Okay, so now let's go back. So now that we have our virtual environment installed, we would want to try out something to test and see whether it's working. So ideally, you can decide to invoke the Python interpreter in your terminal by just typing Python 3 or Python. Once you're inside the virtual environment, you can just type Python and then you see it here. But then I prefer using the IPython. Come on, that's why I installed it. So I'll just type exit here, the exit function to exit this one. So I invoke my IPython. Then I clear the screen and then try certain things here. So 1 plus 1, I have 2, I print hello world, and then I see it here as well. So basically that is how we invoke IPython and then we test out the Python. So let me clear and then let me exit. So Control D, do you really want to exit? Yes. I press Y and I hit enter and we are back. So now the next thing we do is to install a text editor. Here you can choose to use Nano, Vim or Emacs, any favorite text editor you want. But in this tutorial series, I'll be using vscode. So to install vscode, there are several ways. One way is to do sudo snap install code space dash dash classic. And then once you hit the enter, it should try installing vscode for you. Another way is to go to the VS Code website. Just go to Google, make sure you have internet connection, and then you search code or VS Code download, VS Code download. And then once you search VS Code download, you should see this download VS Code here. I think it should be the first link. And then you click on that link and wait on the link to open. Once it opens, you would navigate to the particular version you want. If you're on Linux or Ubuntu, you click on this Ubuntu one here. And then once you click on it, it should pop up and start downloading for you. So you should get this thank you for downloading screen and then you should get the download here. You can download and then install. Once it's done downloading, you can just navigate to where the download is and you do sudo apt install then ./ then code something, the name of the file download, and then once you are done, you hit enter and it should install. I already have VS Code installed, so I would advise you pause the video until you've got it installed. That is if you want to use VS Code to continue with this section. Otherwise, you can use Nano and Vim or any of them, and it should just work fine. To open VS Code in our current Python directory, all we have to do is say code and then dot, full stop, as in the full stop, to indicate this current directory. Then we hit enter. Then VS Code should open up nicely for us here. And then we should have this nice interface. Your color may be different. Obviously, I've installed some themes that your tools here on the left side by here would also be way less. But then don't worry. Once we continue, you would make use of certain things. But the most important thing here is that we come to the store, the extension side. And then once we are at the extension side, we click here and then we search for the Python extension. So you search for Python extension and then make sure that you have internet connection working. And then this brings up the Python extension. Make sure you install the Python extension by Microsoft. This one here. There are different types of extension. The one we need here is Microsoft. So you just click install and then you install it. For now, this is what we have. With time, this is all we need. With time, we can continue installing other things. So now that we have this, let's quickly create a file here. So to create a file, there are two ways. You can either decide to use this creation icon here to create a file, this icon here, or once you create a file, then you can name it maybe setup.py, right? And then you have the file open for you, or you can open up the terminal here by typing Control Shift and then backtick. So this opens up the terminal here for us, right? But then you could see that now this has already activated some virtual environments for me. But then I don't want this environment. I'm rather instead interested in the SciPy. So, sorry. To get that, you would have to come down here where it says choose a Python environment. By default, it should automatically detect the virtual environment and use the one you have in your current directory, right? So you can also choose to create or activate the virtual environment you have in your terminal. But to do that is the same thing. You can either use source or the dots, and then you are sourcing from .sci env and then binary file and then activate script. So now you have this SciPy here activated in your terminal. This is very important because sometimes if you try running the files and you don't have your virtual environment activated in your terminal, it becomes difficult, or sometimes your codes may not run depending on what you want to run, right? So let's test it and see whether it works. So here I just want to say print hello world. Don't worry if you don't know what this print, if you don't understand this, we'll look deeper into this in the next video. So hello world, and then we save. Once you are done saving, right, I expect that you should see this. Once your Python extension has been installed, you should see this thing here. But then I prefer running my Python files directly. All you have to do is navigate, make sure you are in the directory where the Python file is. If you are already in the same directory, then you can run this file or this script by just typing Python. If your virtual environment is activated though, so Python and then the name of the script or the file here. So you hit enter and then you see hello world printed nicely here for you. So basically that's how you run Python. Make sure you have your virtual environment activated in the terminal. To launch the terminal, it is Control Alt that, or simply you just come here on this tab here, click on the terminal and then click new terminal, and then it should open up a new terminal for you. But now I'm here. So let's see whether, now let's try the import statement to ensure that our numpy and the others have been stored. So I do import numpy as what? NP. So yes, because numpy has been installed, we can see the suggestions here for us as NP, and then I could, sorry, as NP, as NP, okay. And then I could also import matplotlib .pyplot as what? PLT. Okay. So since we don't have anything underlining distance, it means they are successfully done. But you could also try them and then try using them and see. All right. So if you are able to follow up to this point, then congratulations, you've set up your system